Hello there and welcome to The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers. We're here every week, as you know, meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. It's going to be a big spring for sports in Oklahoma City, and Tim Brassfield's here today to talk about it.
Yes, I think it's wonderful that Tim would join us to talk about what's going on in sports in Oklahoma City. He's been on before with us. We were welcoming him back for another visit. There's an awful lot to talk about, an awful lot of different events, and nobody better qualified to talk about it than Tim.
Maybe the busiest spring we've had for amateur athletes and big-time sports events coming to Oklahoma City. You toss in the NBA playoffs, and it's going to be jam-packed this year with things to do. So Tim Brassfield will get us caught up on a lot of those events when we return on The Verdict.
I've always been a public servant. I've served either tribes, I've served the federal government, or I've served state governments. The law allows me to express my natural desire to advocate. My name is Stephanie Cochran. I am an attorney and I am Chickasaw. Lawyers give their clients, and in my case, tribal governments, a voice. And it's through legal decisions that tribes have been able to accomplish and to regain some much lost footing that they encountered in the late 1800s and the 1900s. When I reflect back on this time in history, I think I'll look at it in terms of opportunity. And I think now we have to turn those opportunities into long-term success for our future generations.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
As I indicated in the opening segment, we are, pardon me, really pleased to welcome back to The Verdict for his second appearance, Tim Brassfield, the Executive Director of the Oklahoma City All Sports Association. Tim's been in that position for 16 years. He did his undergraduate work at the University of Oklahoma and was a member of the gymnastics team while there and performed quite admirably. He has been a member of the Bricktown Association, Leadership Oklahoma, the Mayor's Sports Council, all the while being Executive Director of the All Sports Association, and the city profits nicely from Tim's effective work. Tim, welcome back. Glad to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Tim and I work together occasionally, and he's done so much to bring events to Oklahoma City and the state of Oklahoma. You've got to have an organizing element, and the All Sports Association has been ours. One thing I was thinking of, the All Sports Association is really, I think, the result of that era in Oklahoma City's history when Stanley Draper and the business community were kind of calling the shots. I mean, when you look back at how they've impacted, they're involved in our water resources today. They were involved in the annexation that's made this city so big. They were involved in the state fair board and in creating the entity now that runs our state fair. But they were also set up the All Sports Association, building what was then All Sports Stadium, and kind of setting up this list of business leaders who could help bring amateur sports to Oklahoma City. And it's still working today, some 50 years later.
Yeah, we were really ahead of our time at that time. Obviously, I wasn't here, but in 1957, Stanley was and the chamber.
And Thurman Medley, as I recall.
That's right. He was one of the early presidents. And
he was
so
my baseball coach, by the way.
Really?
Thurman Medley.
It's neat to look back at the history of that, because it took 41 board members to save an event called the All College. Was really why the All Sports was formed.
Which was a great event, by the way.
It was, and we hope to resurrect it here soon. But it was just a tremendous group of guys that pledged $500 each to basically save that basketball championship at the time, and that was kind of our founding event, and moved forward from there.
And if you're in Oklahoma City and you wondered, it seems like we get more of our events than our share. If it seems like we get more NCAA events and more Big 12 events than you would think we ultimately got, it is. We do.
Yeah.
Because we have this kind of ticket selling machine that is the All Sports Association that can kind of put a guarantee out to the event organizer that you're going to sell X amount of tickets minimally, and our tradition is that we sell even more than that, and that's what speaks volumes for the city.
Yeah, it really does, and it comes down to relationship. My pastor says that all the time. Really, blessings come through relationship, and that's really what we've established, and not just the All Sports, but it's the city. They know that when they come to Oklahoma City that there's a group of folks that are going to support what they do, make every effort to make sure that what they need to happen happens, and so that does speak volumes with the Big 12 and with the NCAA. And even thinking just about just recent, they're bringing Big 12 softball back to the championship. Well, I get a call the following week, and it was one of the associate commissioners at the Big 12, and she said, Tim said, I'm really not trying to bring every championship to Oklahoma City, but how could you guys do soccer? Well, it turned out that our field at Taft is turf, which doesn't work for them, but they look to us often first. Mm-hmm. So,
Well, they're coming, and they're coming on a regular basis. But just how much in advance of them committing to come do you start working to try to persuade them that this is a good place for their event?
yeah, great question. We are generally, for example, this summer we'll begin the bid cycle for 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Now those 23, 24 are like Final Fours, so events that take a lot more planning. But for the most part, it'll be for us 19 through 23. So that's when the bid will happen, and then some events will get to work right away. Some are generally a year out. Most of them.
Talk to us about your staff at the All Sports Association, just approximately its size and what the various folks do.
Yeah, thanks for asking, because that really is what makes us strong. I've got 6 full-time staff there, and we have an intern program where there's 8 to 10 interns working all the time, and they're essentially like extended staff. And started the intern program in 2001, and it has just been a tremendous asset to what we do, because not only do they get great experience in what they want to do for the future possibly, but they just become hired hands for us to extend what we are able to. And then you take a board of 41 volunteers, same number that it had in 1957, and those guys are the ones who really give the time, raise funds. We are a nonprofit, or 501c3, and as a always, and I'm
Don't
sure
get
I've
any
shared
tax
it.
dollars. I tell you.
Well, and you talk about volunteers. I mean, I remember going to the Softball World Series last year, and Ron Norick had a big bag of ice on his shoulder, and he was carrying it down to one of the teams. I mean, those volunteers, it's not just,
They really
it's not
do
just
it.
showing up or writing a check. They have to get out there and work.
Well, all mayors do that.
Yeah.
Did you not know?
Sounds like ex-mayor's a lot harder than being mayor. Not that much manual labor in the job that I
We're waiting for your turn. But it really is true. Without the board, we don't exist. We just don't, because it's a unique association in what we do, because it does take a lot of volunteers. And just even this spring, as we're talking about the number of events we have, we're tapped out. We're having to go, or getting to go, outside of our board members for volunteers and do things that, because they do everything from become team hosts to the teams when they arrive, to transportation to and from the airport, all ice at events, and they just work. They work, and they love it. And that, of course, they raise money, and they do all the other essential things.
And it's so important, because these conferences or governing bodies, they want to they tap into the coaches for how is the experience, how are your athletes treated, and the personal touch that the All Sports Association and those business leaders put to welcoming the team into town, to making sure their needs that couldn't have been foreseen earlier, go met. There's some emergency almost every time, and somebody has to go out there and make sure that fits. You never know what the weather's going to be. I mean, they just have to be able to do whatever is necessary, regardless of the job description when they signed up.
Yeah, and it can vary on event as well. Sure, the bigger events, the NCAA men's basketball championship, they're a lot of fun, but we have events like D2 softball. Well, last year, as you recall, we had a pretty wet spring, and wound up having to move that event to Oklahoma Christian in Edmond on their turf field. And our board, they didn't rebel at all. They did what they had to do to get it done. So it was just things like that. That's a good example of what you're talking about.
Well, let's talk about the events that are coming up here in 2016. Where do you want to start?
Okay, sure. Well, currently we are in the midst, and will be for a couple of weeks, of the State Games of Oklahoma. It's our largest amateur event as a state. It's 31 sports happening across the state at different venues. Last week we had the basketball championship, the state games basketball championship.
Well, who participates? Are these high school teams? Are these
That's
adult teams?
150 teams from across the region, and they can be youth to adult, but it's mainly youth. So 1,500 youth were here playing, and they're staying here for a night or two. It's generally always a weekend. Then it goes to archery, to shooting, to ping pong, to horseshoes. But the winter version is currently going on, and it's just growing. Pickleball happens this weekend out at the greens. You know, the trail run happened at Lake Stanley Draper. So we use every venue we can. We're a little short on basketball, so we use the city's gyms, and they work with us to do that at the public schools. So a lot going on there. So that's what we're currently doing. The next event we'll do will be the Women's Big 12 Basketball Championship. We've just signed an agreement with them that'll be here the next really 5 years. They wanted to park it, and they had moved it around. They had tried that. Their best experience in history has been in Oklahoma City. So they were looking for giving a city an opportunity to grow it. So that's what we're going to try to do.
Well, that's a change in philosophy, is it not?
It is a little bit. They were moving, and we'd have it a couple years. You know, several years ago, back in 2009, they were held. They coincided with the men's championship at the same time, and so now they've parked the men's in Kansas City and the women's in Oklahoma City, and we do that well. So we're going to need to. We're basically, the gauntlet's been thrown down. We're giving it to you, now build it.
Now, will they play in the Cox Center or at the Chesapeake?
They'll play at the
NC
Chesapeake,
Arena?
and that's a little bit of what why they wanted to separate, because they feel like the women's deserve the same venue, same entities that the men's do, and so that's exactly why they're moving it the way they are, and why they did. And then right after that, our biggest event in the spring will be the NCAA Men's Basketball Championship. Will happen March 18th and 20th in the Chesapeake, of course, and that's looking great because one of our local schools just happens to be.
Let me jump to a break, and then we'll get back, because there is conjecture about whether or not Oklahoma would be placed in Oklahoma City. So we'll discuss that and a lot more with Tim Brassfield, the Executive Director of the All Sports Association, when we return on The Verdict.
Clean air, water, and land. Abundant American energy. You don't have to choose one or the other. Because for Oklahoma and America's future, both matter. That's why Oklahoma's oil and natural gas producers share valuable 3D seismic data with regulators and scientists, leading to better views of Oklahoma's diverse geology and more insights into protecting our land. Learn more about these efforts at oerb.com/bothmatter.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers and our guest, Tim Brassfield of the All Sports Association. When we took the break, we were starting to discuss the NCAA men's basketball tournament and the opportunity for the selection committee to put Oklahoma in Oklahoma City. What do you think the chances are?
I think the chances are really great. And timing is everything. You know, we've been here where we wanted that to happen, and it just didn't. But it looks like, from what we've been told and all of the prognosticators out there, it looks like Oklahoma will be here unless they just lay an egg.
So if they're a 1 seed,
If they're a 1 seed, they're here. If they're a 2 seed, they're here. If they're a 3 seed, they're probably
For opening rounds?
yes, for the opening rounds. And they do that, of course. The University of Oklahoma is not our co-host, so OU is able to play here. That's why we co-host with the Big 12 Conference. An example opposite of that would be Des Moines is also hosting a first and second rounds. Well, Iowa State cannot go there because they are co-hosting with Des Moines,
I see.
the city of Des Moines. So we always want to give our local universities the opportunity to be here.
yeah, well, you know, it's a big event when we don't have a local school, but I can remember the years that Oklahoma State was able to play in Oklahoma City. Seems like that happened at least twice, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, there's just a buzz in the city, and especially in the arena, when you have a local team that everybody can tap into.
It does, and we hope to get another Big 12 team. It might, or at least another regional team like Texas A&M is maybe one that we get, but Iowa State could possibly come here.
How many tickets do you have to sell to those events, or how many of them can you just, they're going to sell?
Yeah, 12,000 is what we have to sell. We are lagging just a little bit behind 4 other sites, but we're middle of the road as far as the 8 sites go. So it started to pick up a lot recently.
Now, is this the Chesapeake Arena? Or?
Yes,
Yes.
it is.
Yeah.
So the arena holds 18,000 for basketball.
203.
That's right. Very good, Ken. 18,203. And so the assumption is if Oklahoma were chosen for this region, you would think the all-session tickets would sell out as soon as that announcement was made.
Yeah, and like I say, the momentum is really starting to pick up now. So I think there's a certain number that the universities take and receive when they come, and then it's kind of an interesting deal because they all wind up trading. You know, if you get knocked out, you don't need your 400 tickets for the next round, so you may talk to the ticket manager at the other university. So, we're challenged with selling some tickets and a pretty healthy guarantee.
All right, so after the NCAA men's basketball, what's next on your schedule?
Well, before we leave that, is that just one weekend, 2 weekends?
That's one weekend.
One
That's
weekend.
March 18th, which is a Friday, and 20th, which is a Sunday.
So Friday, Sunday?
Yes.
Okay.
They'll-
I'm sorry.
They'll
Go ahead.
advance on from there to the Sweet 16.
And is that called round 1 and 2, even though there's a play-in game?
There it is, and
Okay,
the
I just-
confusion there is they switched it for a couple of years for second and third
Okay,
rounds.
so I'm not crazy.
You're not crazy
Okay.
because of the play-in, because of the opening rounds.
Right, they switched it back. Okay,
So-
I like it. I like it switched back.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think we all communicate better with first and second rounds. The next event that we would do would be Big 12 Baseball Championship, which happens in May. Same scenario there as I mentioned with the women's. It did take a trip to Tulsa last year. The Big 12 came back to us and said, we're going to park it here for 5 years. Go get them, and let's make sure that you do what you need to do to keep that championship there. So we love the baseball.
When does that occur approximately?
That is Memorial Day weekend, is
Okay.
the Wednesday prior to Memorial Day weekend. That's really the best way to look at it. So, or to remember it. But it's a great event for our city. It's been, as you all know, it was Big 8 originally. This is 35 plus years that this event has been in our city. It was out at the State Fairgrounds at Old All Sports Stadium, which just happens to be named after our organization. But anyway. But that championship is tremendous for our city, and I think with our local, Oklahoma State is playing tremendous the last 2 years, and I think Coach Holliday's doing a great job, and Coach Hughes feels good about his team. What you need, perfect scenario, is if you get to where those local teams don't have to drive it. You know, it's just the fun and the energy around the event. That's what we would prefer. So that's what we're shooting for.
Yeah, we have not always done a good job of supporting when, 2 teams outside of our state are playing each other at that Big 12 tournament, and it might be 9 o'clock in the morning, on a Saturday, and people have other things to do. But I really wish we could get back to the idea that we need to support this tournament, and the quality of baseball is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, at the college level, really excited, and you have teams that'll do anything to win these games because it's their ticket to the College World Series if they can run the table, and they have their rabid fans, but they're small in number generally. If you're talking about a college baseball team that's going to travel, you're talking about hundreds of people generally. Oklahoma City needs to fill the gap. We need to get more people out to those Big 12 baseball games.
That would be great, and we're doing everything we can. We've changed our marketing structure. We've hired a marketing firm, so baseball is going to do better. And I'm just convinced that it is here in our city.
All right, and softball.
Following that is the big is the Women's College World Series. An amazing growth even since I've been here. When I was here in '99, we had 25,000 fans coming through. Well, last year it was over 75,000. We have a stadium that holds 5,000. We bring in bleachers that'll hold another 3. Every session sells out, oversells, and we go over 9,000 in most sessions. So it's just tremendous. And as the mayor knows, we are in a update season out there as far as upgrading the stadium to what the NCAA would like for us to do, and doing some of the things that need to be done, and that's going to include an additional 4,200 seats. We have, at this time, we've done phase 1 and phase 2, and the phase for the seating will happen in 2019, I think.
How many teams involved in that?
That's 8.
8 teams.
And that is the championship. So that is the Big Kahuna. That's the one where they desire to get. And University of Oklahoma at one time, this would be an example of kind of what I'm talking about with baseball. University of Oklahoma in 2000 won the national championship. It opened our eyes as a city, I think, at that time, how big softball is. And of course, ESPN grabbed hold of it. And since that has happened, they've been here many times, but they don't have to be here. It's sold out every year. And so I have Oklahoma fans that are striving to get tickets just as hard as people from LSU. So it's a neat event.
People are designing their vacations around coming to Oklahoma City as they've seen this event grow. Tim mentioned the expansion. Yes, we have. In our last bond issue, part of the project was to expand the stadium, update the facility. A lot of these young women are playing on campus facilities that have been improved through the years, and it came to the World Series, and we had suddenly started to fall behind. The NCAA said, we love Oklahoma City. We want to give you a 25-year deal, but you got to improve your facility. So we came up with a funding mechanism to do that. Those improvements will be taking place over the next 5 years, and with every improvement we make, it solidifies that 25-year commitment from the NCAA. So it should be a great event that will continue to grow here with the expansion of the stadium.
I believe so. And you look at baseball in Omaha, they've just passed their 53rd year or something like that. That's where we want to be. By the time we end this current agreement, it'll be 2035, and I won't be here doing that. So anyway, I hope it's here for many, many years to come, and I think it will be. But there's always changes and adjustments, and we're making them.
Well, we've talked about a lot of exciting projects, and you've had a chance to talk about your organization. Talk about how somebody can get involved. If somebody's watching and say, I never really have been able to tap into that organization, what do I need to do to be a part of it?
Thanks. We are an organization that basically we exist to secure, create, promote, execute, and host quality, family-oriented amateur sporting events. And we have a great economic impact in the community, which ranges from 35 to 70 million, depending on the events in the year. So that's great. It's an engine. It's a tourism engine in a lot of ways. Members, we have about 500 of those. They can be involved by logging onto our website to get the information, but once they're a member, they do get rights to purchase tickets, the better seats ahead of the general public. And then, of course, again, we've talked about board members. If you're a business person out there, or you're just somebody who wants to volunteer, we have board members who volunteer, but we also need additional volunteers. There's a volunteer tab on our website, so they can log on and get involved with us there, and we'd love to have them.
Well, sounds great. And so as you're enjoying all of these events this spring, now you know whom to thank, Tim Brassfield and his board of directors at the All Sports Association. Tim, thanks for your time today, and thanks for everything you do for Oklahoma City.
You bet. Thank you all. Thanks for having me.
Keep them running.
Okay.
Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back.
There are now 11 million of us who live here and work here. I was 15 when I came here 6 years ago. I raised my family here. drive my truck to my job every day. The only difference between now and 6 years ago, I do it legally. I wanted to. Because this is my home.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers are wrapping up the show with the All Sports Association as our principal topic and Tim Brassfield as our guest.
Yeah, Tim has his leadership skills have really helped enormously the All Sports Association prosper and the city prosper as a direct result. And I think you, along with some other folks, forward-thinking folks in the city, have had a lot to do with the All Sports Association. And that is an organization that does a lot of good things for Oklahoma City and brings a lot of entertainment, if nothing else, to our citizens.
And Tulsa has a similar organization. When you look back at it, though, it's been a unique relationship between the business community, the city. You know, obviously you have to have the venues, and so as the city has invested in things like the Chesapeake Energy Arena and the baseball stadium, and you know, you see that the All Sports Association was the perfect organization to take advantage of those. There's our website, theverdict.tv is the way you can get more information to me and Kent about a show you'd like to see coming up. Also, contact Tim about being a part of the All Sports Association. We'll see you next week on The Verdict.